Hi guys, I hope you're doing absolutely great so far. In this video, we will talk about alerts and sheets, also known as modal sheets. And we'll talk about sheets. There are two types of sheets, half and full screen representation of these modal sheets. Then we'll talk about action sheets and how to handle multiple of the sheets, right? So we'll start off with simply alerts and then we'll move on to the modal sheets and see further action and how to handle multiple of sheets. That is what I've mentioned here. And to start off with alerts, as we saw this in a previous video, it's just a pop-up with a message and buttons. So alerts are used to show important messages or confirmation. What we do use is the modified dot alert, and it has the parameter is presented, which is based on the value. It's a Boolean value. So if it's true, then only the alert triggers. And so we call it is representation is basically if you want to present the alert, then this value needs to be true. So let's start off with our first example and understand alerts. So as usual, we have our structure alerts sheets and models examples where we will be actually just running our examples, and the preview is where we have our structure representing that example here. So when it comes to alerts, it's a simple example where we have a vertical stack and we have a button upon which clicking upon which we will get alert. So when you click on the show alert button, it will turn our state property to true. As soon as our state property identifies any change, it will just refresh the whole view. And as soon as the property has changed, it will become true. isPresented become true, and that's when the alert is popped up. So here in the alert, all we do is mention a string that goes as a title of your pop-up and a button in it with the title OK, and we will give it a rule cancel so that when you click on the OK button, it will dismiss the pop-up. And if you want to give further more information in the pop-up, you can use the message closure here. Let's try running this. I've already pasted this example here, and let's click. So it gives you this nice little pop-up with important message in bold, which is the title of your pop-up. And this is a simple alert, is the smaller text, kind of like a subheading, which is where your message goes. You can give a long message here or keep it at least a line or a couple of words, and can be any long, but this is where you can be very descriptive about the pop-up. What is the really the notification release? Now I have created a button OK with cancel rule. So we'll discuss the rule, what it does. So when you click on OK, it will dismiss, but that is what is happening when you click. How the OK is appearing is decided by the rule. So it is appearing in blue and bold. So when you change it to dot some other rule like destructive, a rule that indicates a destructive button, and now if you will click, you will find two buttons. So let's take a step back and understand something. When it was a cancel rule, we were clicking and we were getting OK button. But if I will comment this button line, there is no component button anymore. And now if you click, the OK is still appearing. That is because the alert by default keeps OK button to dismiss the alert. So if you're going to give some other text, then you can create that button and it will override the default button that comes with the alert. And now it says agree. And when you change the rule and you make it restrictive, it will by default add a new button. So there are two buttons now. You can see the one that we made destructive, that is our agree button. It is now appearing in bold red. And there is one more button, which is the default button that the SwiftUI adds up to the pop-up. That is the cancel. That is something which is going to dismiss the pop-up. Agree is going to run this particular closure where we can perform some sort of, when you click on agree, whatever the work you want to do, you can just write it in the closure. But cancel is now there to dismiss. Basically, SwiftUI makes sure that your alert always have a way to get dismissed. And when you click on agree, it will run the closure. Since there is nothing, it will just automatically dismiss. It's mandatory for the pop-up to get dismissed whichever the button the user clicks on. So cancel is exclusively by default for dismissing the pop-up, but agree is where you want to do some work when the user interact with this button. We will discuss this a little more in upcoming examples. So the role actually decides basically the color of the title of your button. If you make it cancel, it will override that by default OK button. And it will give agree keyword here. And that is a quick introduction on alert. Now I've mentioned a quick note displays an alert when the button is tapped, dismisses the alert with the OK button. So if you remove it, it by default will come with OK button because SwiftUI is going to make sure it will dismiss the pop-up. And here I've mentioned SwiftUI provides built-in rules. So here we have the default nil. Let's try this one as well. If I type default, there's nothing like this. But if you don't give the role and just a simple button and click, it will still dismiss. So by default, the role is actually cancel. But I've mentioned if you don't mention it, then it will take cancel by default. And declaration here, just a quick brief code to remind quickly what destructive holds and how to really declare that. And effect is when it comes to you not mentioning the role, it's a normal button appearance. When you use destructive, it turns red. Used for delete warning action. That is something when you run the closure where you can actually do some sort of deletion or some sort of processing you want to do. When it comes to cancel, it's a bold and blue used for dismissing action. It's actually bold and blue. And that's a quick introduction on alerts. And let's see one more example where we have multiple buttons. It is just that we have a simple button which is going to make a change in the show alert, and in our alert we are just mentioning the state property. So as soon as it turns true, we will show the alert. So here we have two buttons. That basically means when you use destructive for the first button, and it makes sense to give the title delete because it will appear red, and delete is a keyword that goes with the theme red color. And you can kind of have an array here and delete the item and then say print, basically print item deleted. And since it's going to have one more button, as soon as if there is another button and suppose it's not there, you're just given one button and it's destructive, you know the pop-up is going to appear with the destructive button saying delete, but there will be a default button to make sure the pop-up get dismissed with the help of that button. So I need to put this first in our, I will enable the second example and comment this one. And now if I click, you'll see this is our button, delete. But there is a cancel button that comes up by default. And when you enable this and you cancel, or you want some modification to that second button, all you have to do is to create a button and that default button will get overridden. And now it says cancel all. And that is it. We have mainly two roles, and you start basically understanding how by default the SwiftUI gives you a button to dismiss a pop-up, and when you create a destructive or cancel, how that default buttons gets overridden. And that is it. Other things like the title, it appears in bold, and the message here, the view will appear. Mostly we just put a simple text because we already have the alert layout. All you have to do is to just add a kind of a description, and that will do. And I've mentioned here the delete shows options like delete and in case of destructive, and cancel. So when you use destructive, we get two buttons. One is the one we created, and the default if this one is not there. But if we create this one, it will override the default button. And that's all there is when it comes to alerts. Let's begin with sheets. And sheets are also very straight, actually, very straightforward topic to understand. And sheets are really just when you click on a button, some sort of new screen comes up from the bottom, it slides up. That is called sheet. And let me first enable our example to see it in action. And here we have sheet. So also known as modal. So it's going to present the modal views. Sheets present modals that slides up from the bottom. And when you click, it will slide up. You can actually just with the swap, bottom swap, you can just close it as well. And we use dot sheet is presented modifier to trigger that sheet appearance. So we have, when you click, this is a new view that appears. So we have the sheet view, which is something you can see right now. It says this is modal sheet, which we have written here. We'll come to this view in a second, but let's go and understand how upon the click we are showing the sheet. So we use the modifier dot sheet. It's a simple state property where we have show sheet. So this is a boolean that we need to give to isPresented property of each sheet. As soon as this becomes true, sheet will be triggered. And what kind of view you want to show is something that you have to mention in the closure. So we have our view prepared, and that's all we are calling. So how to trigger the sheet? With the help of the state property here. To make a change in the state property, we have a simple button, and we are giving the value to true. We can toggle it as well. Here I'm just assigning, and we have the button with the title open sheet. So when you click, it will show you the sheet view. And to go through once again, when you click on the button is going to assign true value to our state property. As soon as there is any change in the state property, it will refresh the whole view. It will go in the view, look for where the show sheet is used. Here it is used, and it will turn from false to true. As soon as this becomes true, the sheet will trigger and it will show you the view in the sheet. Now in the sheet view, we know we can close it with the drag, but if it was a full sheet, if it was a full sheet like this, we cannot drag it down and close it, right? So let's understand one more thing. So in the next example, we'll understand how to create a full representation of the modal sheet, and let's understand how to close that full representation of the modal sheet by creating a button here, and on the click of the button we should be able to close the sheet. And in the sheet view we have the vertical stack, and it's just a text. That is what we are seeing here. But what we can do is create a close button and call dismiss method here. And we will get an error here because this dismiss method we're calling is actually an present in an object, and to access that particular object we have to use add environment and go inside and access the dismiss read-only property, and we create a variable, get that property into here in the dismiss keyword, and we call that get only property with the parenthesis. Yes, we'll encounter this question that it's read only property, right? So if you look at the definition of dismiss, it's really just a get only read only computational property. And if you go further in dismiss action, then you will see the dismiss environment values get the instance, and that is why we will have to call a method as a method. If you see some examples here, we have an environment variable and we just call this variable with a parenthesis, and that is a way to dismiss the current sheet that is appearing. So when you open the sheet, you will see a close button here, which is really just this sheet view with the button close and the title. You click on it, it will dismiss the current sheet which is appearing. And that is another way to close the modal sheet half representation of the modal sheet. Since it's appearing only the halfway, it's not taking the full screen. And this is the one way, and the second way is with the help of a button. So this was the half modal sheet representation, or modal sheet representation where it appears or occupies the half of the screen, not completely. And here in the notes, I've mentioned opens a modal sheet when the button is tapped, and use dismiss to close the sheet. Now let's understand the full screen cover. It's just a full screen modal. It works like sheets, but covers the entire screen. Not much of a difference. It just occupies, and for that, we will use dot full screen cover is represented. So for half representation, we were using dot sheet is representation is represented, and for full representation we use dot full screen cover. And let's see one example on it. So on our full screen we will be having this view. It is exact same. We have the dismiss environment variable. Upon the click of the close button, it will dismiss our full screen, and we have the text saying full screen view. Let me put, this is what full screen view we are calling in our modifier full screen cover. So when you click on the button, it will turn our state property to true, and as soon as there is any change in this, it will trigger the full screen cover, and where we will show our full screen view, which is right here. Let me enable this example. Comment sheet example, and open full screen, which is our button. If you click, it will occupy the whole space on the screen. As soon as you click on the button, it will change the value of the state property. As soon as there is any change, it will refresh the whole view. That means it will look for full screen, show full screen state property. And here in the modifier, it is been utilized. It will become true from false. And as soon as the isPresented parameter becomes true, it will trigger the full screen cover. And that's where we are showing our full screen view, where we have a title and a close button. So this is our title and this is our close button. When you click, it will be closed. And there's only one way to close it, unlike half representation of the sheet, where we used to just click and drag down and it was closed. But here that option is not there. So we have to have some way, some other way to close the full representation of the modal. And that is it. I've mentioned in a note here, opens a full screen modal that covers everything. Full screen. Swipe down to dismiss or use a close button. So swipe down to dismiss is something which is not an option. And we have to use a close button. Swipe down to dismiss is not an option, and we have to use the close button. Now let's talk about action sheet. I will put our action sheet example, enable it. Let's see in action, and then we'll discuss it in the code. Let's come back to our action sheet. Yeah. So action sheet is really a quick action link, sharing, deleting, choosing an option. And we use the modify.confirming dialog for it. So let's click on show action sheet, and you will see it is an action sheet. It is a sheet that comes up with some option upon which if you click, there will be some action performed. So this is a simple, also known as confirming dialog. So action sheet, aka action menus or confirming dialog. So we use dot confirming dialog modifier instead of dot action sheet in SwiftUI. And here in the example, this is our full example. We have dot confirming dialog on our button. When you click the button, it will assign the value true to our state property, and isPresented parameter of confirming dialog is where we have mentioned our state property. As soon as this becomes true, it will trigger the confirming dialog to appear, which will have a title, choose an option, which is right here. And we have given a title visibility to visible so that the title is visible. And we have two buttons and the third one as well. So you can see there is a separation between the first two button and the third one. So by default, for cancel rule or for the cancel button, it will appear as separately. The first button is the delete button with the role descriptive, and same when you click on it, well, the descriptive is going to apply a theme. Just to revise it quickly, the theme is red color. It appears slightly bold, but it is either bold or red. Mostly it's just a red color. That's how we can identify it's a descriptive button. And we can delete an item from our array here somewhere, and it is going to just allow some sort of editing. You can access the array and edit something in the array values, and the cancel button is just going to dismiss the action sheet or say confirmation dialog. So when you click cancel, it will disappear. Delete will actually run its closure, and edit will run its own closure. So I've mentioned here displays an iOS styled action sheet and includes destructive, edit, and cancel option. And that is it. That is all about action sheet. I have summarized what you have seen so far, because the next what we are going to see is how to handle multiple sheets. So to summarize, we have seen alerts, sheets, full screen covers or full screen sheets, and action sheet. This is the quick code examples for revision and what it does. So alert is going to show a pop-up message. Sheet it presents a bottom sheet model, and full screen sheet presents a full screen model. Action sheet is going to show an iOS styled action sheet. And let's understand how to handle multiple sheets now. So I will enable our example, this first example. But before that, I will give you a quick brief because there are two ways to handle multiple sheets. So this is the scenario where we want to show multiple sheets and how to handle that. So in SwiftUI, you can present multiple sheets dynamically using different approaches. The first one is using one single state variable and having a condition, or you can use multiple state variable for each sheet. So let's understand the first one. So here I have written one example for it. It seems quite a big example, but it's very straightforward and easy to understand. Multiple sheet enum example. So I'll just enable it here. So this is the first approach. And all we have is one state variable active sheet. We have a enum that we utilize. We'll come to that in a second, but let's understand the body of our view. So we have a vertical stack where we have two buttons. Open first sheet. When you click on the button, it will take your state variable and assign it a value dot sheet. And this state variable is of type sheet type, which is our enum. So we are giving it an enum value. When you click on the second, it will give dot second enum value. And here finally we have dot sheet, where we are mentioning our state variable. Whenever it change, it will, you will have to mention it for item parameter, and it will identify, it will actually going to return the sheet, and we will analyze it. If the value is first, second, then we will represent our first sheet view, which is right here. If it's the value is second, then we'll represent second sheet view, which is right after our first view, right here. So let's run it first. When I click on open first sheet, it will show you the title and the close button. So here in the first sheet, we have the title and the close button. Since it's a half representation model sheet, we can drag it down as well. We can close it as well. But I have mentioned the close button as well, and we need access to the environment variable. And the same code goes for the second sheet view. When you click on the second one, the only title difference is there, which says this is the second sheet. Now let's come back and understand our approach. So we are using one single state property. That is an option. We'll just initialize it as nil. And the moment you click on the first button, it will assign the value to an active sheet state property. So there is a change in the state property. It is going to refresh the whole view. So it looks for where the active sheet is used, and it finds that sheet is using, and this is the only place it is used. Here we are assigning the value, we are not using it. Using it really means we are reading. So here we have mentioned our action sheet, and this value, to read the value, we just going to give our state property to the parameter item. So you have to give the active sheet state property to the parameters item. It's just going to say the item is expecting binding item. That basically means that you have to mention a state property here. So we are going to learn about binding in upcoming videos, and in a progressive manner, of course, that we have to learn, then only we can understand what we are doing here. But here we are, it is expecting the state property which will undergo change, and the sheet has a closure where it will return the value of the state property. We will analyze it. So we have the switch case. For every case, we will analyze if the value is first. We will actually put the first sheet view inside our sheet, and that is it. When you click on the first one, the first view appears, and when you click on the second will appear. So this is just one approach, that is where we have one single state property. Now when it comes to using multiple state variables, we can have for each button, we can have its own state variable. So let's understand one example here. So we have the multiple sheet Boolean example. I will enable it. I'm gonna comment this and uncomment this, and I'll mention here this is the second approach. And here we have the same thing. We have the first button, but it is going to access the first state property and turn it true. And we have a sheet. As soon as there is a change in the first sheet state property, it will represent the sheet. If it will turn false, it will dismiss it. And button second has the same code. It is going to treat the second state property and it will turn it true, and we have the sheet separately for that. And that is a straightforward way. We have the second view and first view already created here, and that is what it will utilize. So now if you click, it will work exactly same, except the only change is separate sheet are appearing for based on separate state properties, and the separate state properties are changed separately with the buttons. And that's it. That is all there is to understand when it comes to alerts and model sheets. I hope you find this video informative, and I will connect with you in the next one.